Don't play the Can You Hide game if it appears on your phone. You won't find it on Google Play or the App Store. There's nothing about the game on any public websites other than this cautionary post. It doesn't matter whether you're a good or a bad person. It indiscriminately chooses targets. The point is that you can't avoid the game. Nobody can. You might hear a reverberating ding from your phone, a death toll from the depths of hell. An incongruous window might pop up. Can you hide? Yes. No, make sure you select no. When the window first appeared on my phone screen, I was stunned. I always presumed smartphones to be safer from the threat of viruses than computers. Especially a brand new iPhone. Isn't Apple supposed to be superior to Microsoft when it comes to security? Nice try, I said. But before I made a rash decision and ended up infecting my phone with something nasty, I decided to do some research. I'm not exactly computer savvy, but I didn't trust either the yes or no option. I didn't want to mess with the window in any way. There was nothing about the Can You Hide pop-up online. I didn't even realize it was a game until a Reddit user, who I won't name, pointed me in the direction of a Discord server for discussing unearthly matters. There was an entire category dedicated to the bizarre new game that had been appearing on people's phones. Clicking yes, apparently, commences a hide-and-seek game of unknown origin. I scrolled through the many Discord messages. I've removed the usernames. User 1. Can anyone help me? Nobody seems to know anything about this game. My friend played it nonstop for a week, and then he went missing. That was 2 weeks ago. There are daily search parties, but I don't think they're going to find him. He said it wasn't really a game. He said he saw a face outside his window. User 2. You have to select no. User 3. I destroyed my phone after reading these messages. Haven't seen or heard anything unusual. User 4. I selected no, but I keep hearing creaks. And I don't think it's in my head. User 6. Just leave the pop-up window open, guys. You don't have to select anything. User 5. What? For the rest of my life? What if something accidentally knocks it? User 3. Destroy your phone. Like I said, it worked for me. User 6. Until it pops up on your next phone. User 5. What if I just turn off my phone? That seems a little less dramatic than destroying it. User 3. Your funeral. The more I read, the more anxious I felt. I had expected the pop-up window to be a virus, but everybody was telling ghost stories. Stop being a superstitious baby, I told myself. That guy's disappearance had nothing to do with the game he was playing. Eventually, after a weekend of horrified contemplation, I opted for User 5's idea to turn off my phone. In fact, I took it a step farther and reset my phone to its factory settings. I met my friends, Corey and Tanya, in a local park on Monday afternoon. I'd planned to tell them about my experience, but they beat me to the punch. Why didn't you pick up your phone all weekend, Lee? Corey asked me. We were worried about you, man. We wanted to hang out on Sunday. I didn't fancy third-wheeling. Some of us have to go to work on Mondays, I replied. Hey! I work! Corey protested. From a bathrobe in your bedroom, Tanya smirked. You're both just envious that I can scroll through Reddit and play games away from the watchful eye of my employer, Corey said. Speaking of games, Lee, have you played Can You Hide? My heart plummeted, and I felt as if Corey's words were cinder blocks, dragging my body through the floorboards. He's obsessed, Tanya sighed. He's been playing it every day since Tuesday. It just popped up on my phone, so I thought, why not? Corey laughed. Tanya thought it must be a virus, but it's just a cool augmented reality game. Corey thrust his phone down on the wooden picnic table. It was already open on a game window, a map of our surrounding area. A small green marker indicated Corey's location in the park, and there was a small red marker moving along nearby roads. Once a day, from 2 to 4 in the afternoon, the game takes place. I have to hide. It tracks my location in the real world, so I have to keep moving. I wanted to delay coming to the park, but I don't think the red seeker will find me here. Besides, it's 10 to 4. Nearly made it, Corey said. What's the red marker that's searching for you? I asked, shuddering. The boogeyman, Corey whispered. He laughed, and Tanya thumped him on the arm. You know that kind of talk makes Lee freak out, Tanya scolded. Corey shrugged, and the pair of them became absorbed in a different topic of conversation. They were tucking into their sandwiches, talking between mouthfuls, but I wasn't eating. I couldn't take my eyes off Corey's phone on the table. The red marker was circling the park, looking for him. I couldn't stop thinking about those people on the Discord server who had spoken so solemnly of the supposedly deadly game. Suddenly, the marker was in the park. Corey was wrong. It had found him. I prepared for something dreadful to happen. I prepared for my friend to be caught. And that's a wrap, Corey said, scooping up his phone. 4 o'clock. Yet again, I bested the game. It got close this time, though. Damn. Just 100 yards away. On the game map, the park was a featureless green patch. I could see Corey's green marker, scarcely standing out from the grass, and I could see the red marker northeast of our location. The victory box read, "You avoided the creeker by 121 yards. You can hide." Tanya groaned and mumbled about Corey's game addiction, and the two of them resumed their conversation. I was about to dive back into reality, putting the silly game out of my head for good, but a sudden noise terrified me. A creak. My eyes shot up from the table. Neither Tanya nor Corey seemed to notice the eerie noise. And I can't explain it, as nearby as the sound seemed, my eyes were drawn to a solitary tree, a little over 100 yards away. Perhaps not exactly where the red marker had appeared on Corey's screen, but close enough. Peering around the bark was a frightful face. The thing looking at the three of us was not human. It was as short as a toddler. Its head, if it even had a head, was wearing a peach-colored rubber mask, almost the tone of human flesh, but not quite. And its sickly sweet smile seared through my eyes into my very soul. With a second resounding creak, the nightmarish face snapped behind the bark, disappearing from view. "Earth to Lee," Tanya said, giggling. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "I think somebody's actually seeking you, Corey," I whispered, pointing a shaky finger at the tree. "I don't think you should play that game anymore." "Your phasmophobia really kills my buzz sometimes, Lee," Corey sighed. "There's no boogeyman following me. I have a proclivity for trembling at everyday sights and sounds. In my mind, there's always a ghost or a ghoul around the corner. Ever since my parents died, I've been that way. But I knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that I hadn't imagined what I saw behind the tree. Unfortunately, my phasmophobia, fear of ghosts and the supernatural, makes it very difficult for anybody to believe me when I've been startled by something." Corey and Tanya told me to take it easy and get lots of rest. The following day, the two of them pinged me incessantly on WhatsApp. I was still reeling from the terrifying thing I'd seen behind the tree. Transfixed by terrible thoughts, the workday flew by. I was starting to believe that maybe I'd become unwell. Perhaps I'd suffered a psychotic break. Not so. Around 5:30 in the evening, on my drive home from work, Tanya called me. I answered via my car's dashboard. "I'm driving right now, Tanya," I said. "What's dash?" I trailed off when I heard my friend bawling her eyes out on the other end of the phone. "It's in the house," she whispered. The game started playing. "It's later than usual." "Slow down," I replied. "What's happening?" "The game started at 6, Tanya tearfully explained in a fragile whisper. "I think you were right, Lee. I think someone's actually seeking us." We saw a horrible face at the window, and then there were creaking sounds in the house. "We're hiding in the attic." Corey's pulled the door up, "So we don't think dash have you called the police?" I interjected, heart pounding. "They're on the way," Tanya said. 15 minutes. "If we can." "What?" "It's Lee." "No, I feel safer with someone on the other end of the..." "Okay." "Corey wants me to hang up. He wants us to be quiet." "Okay, I understand," I shakily replied. "Just make sure dash no. Tanya whimpered. I didn't need to ask what had frightened her. I heard it too. A creak in the attic. It sounded so clear and, once again, so near. So nightmarishly near that I snapped my neck around to make sure the rubber-faced demon wasn't in the backseat of my car. It wasn't. At that point, I decided not to go home. I diverted to Corey's house. An 8-minute journey. Barely any quicker than the police. "How did it even get in here?" Tanya whispered. I didn't even see the door open. My dead ex-boyfriend uploaded his consciousness online, and he's stalking me. Any woman who has ever spurned a man's advances already knows my story. Rejecting someone you have known and loved is, I think, even more perilous than rejecting a stranger. Edward and I dated for 6 months. He was an exceptional man in so many ways, but he soon revealed his contemptible side, and that soured the relationship. Signaled by numerous red flags, I broke up with him. He couldn't accept that. His relentless pursuit began. The monstrous man had veiled his true evil for so many months. I think he'd been aching to free it. His vengeance was savage and unyielding. Threatening social media posts. Candid photos he'd taken of me. An emailed schedule of my family's movements. A restraining order did nothing to stop him. Nevertheless, after months of fear, the horrendous stalking came to a bitter end. In December, Edward tragically froze to death in his snow-covered, beaten-up, unheated Ford Mustang. He had been waiting outside my house for hours at the blistering height of winter. A neighbor found him in the morning. Cards on the table. Edward wasn't even his real name, and I'm not exactly sure why I'm protecting his identity, given that he's dead. I guess I'm still scared of him. Understandable, given that even death hasn't halted his heinous hunt. Edward was a technological wizard. That was his true love. He called himself an innovator. Not a programmer, an artist. During the final month of our relationship, as I started to doubt the man's ethical compass, he became obsessed with the idea of the human soul. Artificial intelligence bored him. The future, he said, was a mesh of man and machine. Immortality. He believed he could upload the human consciousness to a computer. He didn't invent the concept, of course. Mind uploading is a well-documented hypothetical among scientists and philosophers alike. He's watched too many sci-fi films, I thought. But I suppose science fiction often becomes reality, doesn't it? Many people think it's impossible to upload the human consciousness to a computer, but I suppose they only think in terms of computing. Edward's research went beyond ordinary programming. He was ranting and raving about gray code, an underground programming language of the occult. His eerie obsession didn't faze me, in all honesty. I would have endured the plight of the suffering artist, had he not struck me across the face on one particular evening. Abuse was the line. Edward apologized profusely, of course. But the longer I ignored him, the more violent his messages grew. After his death last month, I thought the torture would cease. It did, for a couple of weeks, but then awful things started happening. Edward, nice sunset, Natasha. That was his comment on a recent Instagram picture of me. My friends flooded my DMs, asking whether I thought Edward's account had been hacked. Obviously. What an asinine question. The man was dead. It had to be somebody's perverse prank. But I'd blocked Edward's account, which made the whole ordeal quite traumatizing for me. I thought somebody had bypassed Instagram's security. That made me feel vulnerable. I contacted Instagram about it. They apologized, suspended his account, and I thought that was the end of it. The comments persisted, however. And it wasn't just happening on Instagram. It was happening on every one of my social accounts. I believed that somebody was tormenting me, maybe one of Edward's crazy relatives who blamed me for his untimely death. I told the police, and they promised to conduct a thorough investigation. Yeah, right. I was a little shaken, but I wouldn't say I was scared. The cyber harassment had stirred some of the old trauma and fear, but I felt resilient. Nobody could scare me as much as Edward, and Edward was dead. I was convinced that it was some idiot with a vile vendetta. It was what happened a week ago that defied all rational explanation and filled me with fear unlike any I've ever experienced. One night, I was lying in bed, and a ping from my laptop startled me. It was open on my desk, less than a foot from the end of my bed. I certainly hadn't left it open, I hadn't left it switched on, for that matter. And I hadn't left it on Facebook. Who even uses Facebook anymore? The screen was scrolling by itself. Somebody's hacked my computer. That was my first thought. The mystery hacker was looking at Edward's profile. The scrolling stopped, and I found myself staring at an old photo of Edward and me at a party. It was from the early days of our relationship. We looked happy. I get it, Ryan, I murmured, assuming Edward's brother to be behind the torture. It's my fault that he's dead. And then something horrifying happened. The photo moved. To be more specific, Edward moved. I, like everything and everyone else in that picture, remained static. But Edward, suddenly untethered, strolled over to the photographer. He was engulfing every square inch of the full-screen photo. My dead ex-boyfriend was staring through the laptop screen. Staring at me. What is this? I cried breathlessly. I wasn't even sure how it was possible to override Facebook in that way, but I still felt that everything was within the realm of possibility. It's Ryan. It has to be Ryan. That didn't explain how he doctored an old photograph to include a moving video of Edward. Deepfake technology? Hello, Natasha, Edward said. His voice was garbled, as if he were swirling in a blender. My chest tightened. Did Edward record himself to torture me from beyond the grave? I wondered. You look so beautiful, his inhuman voice gushed. I like your new hair. And the dog pajamas are adorable. I yelped quietly. It couldn't be a pre-recording. How would he have known that I'd changed my hairstyle? How could he have known about the new pajamas? Ryan. It has to be Ryan. He's watching me through my webcam. And then something happened which couldn't be attributed to Ryan. Edward's demeanor shifted. As had been the case in our 6-month relationship, he swiftly transitioned from a genial gentleman to a vehement villain. His pixelated head tilted to one side, as if he were simply ogling me from a fresh angle. His smile had only changed ever so slightly, but it was now brimming with malignancy. The dead man's charm was vanishing. So were his pupils, for that matter. Seconds later, all that remained were two white, soulless eyes. It felt as if I were seeing the real Edward at long last. The subhuman thing that lay dormant beneath his scintillating shell. A thunderous thudding sound sent a shockwave through my body. Horrified, I watched Edward's hands pressing against the screen of my laptop. As if he were trapped underwater, he continued to push against the surface of the pixelated pool. The screen continued to flex. I screamed in unbridled terror. I finally accepted that it wasn't Ryan. It wasn't anything that could be explained by earthly rhyme or reason. I wasn't going to wait for my undead abuser. Never again. I scarpered from my bed, beelining for the door of my room. Before I could flee, there was a blinding flash of light from my laptop screen. The door swung shut, and a piercing sound emitted from the speakers of my laptop. It sounded like a ghastly cry of agony. You're not leaving me again, Edward commanded. I rotated to face the digital entity that was slithering free from my laptop screen, which was stretching around him like elasticated rubber. When he finally escaped his digital prison, Edward's long limbs glitched ghoulishly before me. He adjusted his posture, standing upright and gazing upon me with wide, empty eyes. My stalking specter widened his fiendish Cheshire cat grin. I found a way to live forever, he whispered. If you join me, I promise we won't ever fight again. I tirelessly battled to open my bedroom door, which was being held shut by an invisible force. Twisting my head to look at the monstrous creature behind me, I whimpered in horror. Edward slowly stumbled towards me on unsteady, glitching legs, toppling his head to one side. I screeched at the top of my lungs and turned back to face the door, desperately yanking the handle. That was when I had a dreadful idea. I darted towards my bedside table, swerving past Edward's outstretched arms. Picking up a half-full glass of water in one hand, I turned to face my ex-boyfriend. His lips parted, and a pit of blackness was revealed. That same high-pitched wail erupted from the caverns of his demonic body. He knew what I was about to do. Without a moment's thought, I launched the glass of water at the digital ghoul that was lumbering towards me. Edward screamed in a robotic cry so deafeningly loud that my ears popped. As the water soaked through his shimmering, translucent skin, he began to spasm manically. His unbound digital form retreated, and I watched the laptop screen reclaim him. My bedroom door swung open, so I assumed my undead stalker must simply have been too distracted to keep me trapped. I seized my opportunity and fled my flat. I have been living in my car for the past few days. This is the first time I've used technology since the incident. I'm currently in a computer cafe. There are plenty of people around, and I don't think Edward would come for me in a public place, but who knows? I just wanted to post here because I need help. I don't know where to go or what to do. I have nightmares of being imprisoned in Edward's eternal digital prison. I keep seeing flickering screens out of the corner of my eye. Should I get off the grid and avoid technology for the rest of my life? I can't run. He's everywhere.